Hey everyone, Chloe here, and welcome back to this feminine platform and welcome back to this elevated channel. And of course, if you are a new subscriber, ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers, welcome. Now for a quick PSA, and I'm not going to say this every video, but for housekeeping purposes, there is obviously a week after week negative pattern of bad and sad news where we are being whiplashed with so much trauma, PORN, and I touched upon this in my IG stories. So for my feminine listeners, as a feminine wife, I will always prioritize giving my feminine divine the much needed space and the sacred womanhood protection that it deserves, because protecting your soft power and what it is exposed to should always be a priority. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, while it is okay to be informed, I highly suggest that you take the time to keep yourself soft. But with that being said, because I know that my followers have been perched waiting to hear my thoughts on both Mr. Diddy trade and the release of this horrific video, and my immediate thoughts when I first saw this nail in the coffin proof. Like many of you, I felt anger, sadness, and disappointment, but also not surprised at all that the download diddler and his track record as an abusive personality is a woman beating punk. This abuser footage is basically the proof that we all needed to corroborate what we all have always suspected of this very dark-spirited and very untrustworthy snake of doing for decades. But because the diddler is such an Academy Award level Catman and is such a slick full-time actor and is such a diabolical shape-shifting chameleon, he has never ever been caught red-handed in the full-out act of being the horrible human being that we have always suspected that he could be. But now we no longer have to drive ourselves crazy about having hard proof, because this video is proof of everything. But from a dark feminine divine perspective, God rest the dead and the very murky and the very mysterious circumstances that continue to surround her death. But make no mistake, Kim Porter's soul and her spirit is working overtime on the other side and has unraveled and is currently crumbling the perjury and the mirage of Diddy's very phony persona and has snatched naked the covers off of Diddy's lies upon lies for the entire world to see. So for this beady-eyed, insecure gremlin and this evil Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde persona who has privately terrorized women, it is going to be a very long summer and a cold, dark winter, as it is now time for the spirit of justice to now collect from the unraveling of his poorly built house of cards that is now happening in 4K. What Diddy, the performative clown, has tried to cover up over the years by using his millions and using extortion and the tentacles of his industry power has been one of the sickest demonstrations of toxic narcissism from a music mogul that we have ever witnessed. And as my grandmother would say, everybody ain't lying on you. So make no mistake, Diddy is an extreme narcissist, and the narcissist's greatest fear will always be exposure. But Diddy's history has always had many tentacles, but there is no rest for the wicked. There have been rumors for decades, and Diddy has always had more skeletons than a cemetery and has been a menace to society since the 90s. But for those of us who read Cassie's entire lawsuit, we all know that the rabbit hole goes deep with this monster, because Diddy literally made Cassie do drugs while he watched her have relations with other men. And this demon filmed and practiced disgusting, very disgusting humiliation rituals on her to not only have collateral on her, but also to keep her trauma bonded to him. So we can only use our imaginations to understand what this woman-hating sexual deviant has done to torture the very beautiful spirit that is Kim Porter until her very last days here on earth. And not too many people have mentioned this very nasty work aspect of this man's narcissistic character. But Diddy is a persona that likes to hide behind the two-dimensional image of being a good father to manipulate the public into seeing him as a good man who is all about love, family, and loyalty. But behind closed doors, his output is so negative that it just keeps spilling out in overflow. For the most part, he has been a very successful, but also a very slippery mogul with a very hit or miss, grandiose party animal reputation that could not be pinned down by actual proof of his nefarious character, even with all of the death that follows him and hovers over him like a dark cloud up until now. Now, getting this out of the way, the only people that we should be feeling empathy and compassion for are all of Diddy's victims, and we all know that his victim list is longer than a CVS receipt. But the only people that we should be feeling empathy for in this situation are his victims and his children, who will be plagued by their father's reputation and his very problematic legacy of abuse, grooming, narcissism, and his exploitative business practices that have allegedly gotten people unalived and or financially destitute. Now, Diddy's little Stockholm Syndrome mini-me thought that he could mock the feds with that weak diss record, and the government said, bet, we got bars too, checkmate. And more than likely the feds dropped this very damning, the diddler is done and there's more evidence to come evidence. And unfortunately for Cassie, she has had to relive her traumas out with this public video reveal. But at least there is now actual proof of the diddler as the actor who in real life is an unhinged monster. Now, for context purposes as to why everyone is in utter shock and in outrage, I will play the clip, but as a warning, the video evidence that you are about to see may be triggering, so you have been warned. And I will be back with the rest of my commentary. Now, I am not going to lie. This video clip made the woman in me shed some very painful tears, because to see a woman trying to escape abuse by tiptoeing down a hotel lobby hallway with a hoodie on and without her shoes on, only to have this controlling, raging maniac be comfortable enough in a bath towel to chase her down a hallway, only for him to kick her down like an animal. And even worse, for Cassie to play dead, lets me know that her survival instincts must have kicked in to not fight back so that he doesn't ultimately unalive her. Clearly in this video, she was so accustomed to his physical abuse that she had no physical fight left in her. So I can only imagine how disassociated and mentally checked out that she had to be to cope with this, at the time, powerfully connected mogul and his incessant abuse. Now, the reason why this video clip is so important is because it is the visually compelling evidence that was needed so that this monster could no longer gaslight or pretzel twist a narrative of denying how much he actually harmed Cassie. This video has finally shut down the counter accusations and the gaslighting that the diddler has been using to protect his crumbling reputation, with false accusations of Cassie coming after him for a money grab and accusations from the pick-me handmaidens and the victim blamers of Cassie, who accused Cassie of only wanting to be with Diddy for his money, when in reality Cassie was just a 19-year-old young woman who wanted this simple opportunity to be with a man who was connected and powerful enough to jumpstart her music career. But instead, she was groomed and triangulated against Kim Porter and primed for both the abuse and all of the imprisonment that comes with domestic violence. And for those of you who don't know what grooming is, a groomer is a person, man or woman, who has enough life experience to exploit a young person's naivete and their inexperience. Younger people are typically more trusting. They are typically very green when it comes to spotting self-serving personalities. But a groomer is in essence a predator, and in Diddy's case, an apex predator who sees you coming. They already know that you want something that they can provide, and usually it's a combination of love, support, and opportunity. But what no one tells younger women about dating older men is that a groomer will already have orchestrated plans for you for their own benefit that will usually involve a cruel amount of exploitation, where the power dynamic is solely in their favor, which will usually make their younger victims feel trapped. And that is exactly what this monster did to Cassie. He entrapped her with promises of a career only to trap her into a nasty cycle of humiliation and abuse. So just because a younger woman wanted an opportunity to be sponsored does not mean that she voluntarily signed up to get abused. These are the kinds of weirdo, typically ignorant responses that are blurted out by the unenlightened and the lower bottom shelf frequencies who love to victim blame for sport. These are your pick-me boots and your misogynistic men who support the notion that women are these a dime a dozen disposable throwaways that do not deserve respect, protection, or to be believed. And that includes Ms. Kelly Cotton Candy for Brains Price, who is out here way too soon posting on Instagram by weaponizing her Christian beliefs by offering up forgiveness to Diddy after his very weak public apology. And I wonder if Mrs. Price is going to write a nice, healing, comfortable prayer for Cassie as well. I highly doubt it. Ms. Kelly, the man who disrespectfully calls himself Love does not need you to carry water for him because he did this to himself. And women like Cassie shouldn't have to work this hard to prove that they are being abused, especially to other women. Right now, as it stands, Diddy is cornered and he is desperate because the fictional narratives that he has built over the decades are now finally crumbling.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you got to do that. I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. Now they're going to therapy, they're going to rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
So, of course, with his very whack apology, his weaponized vulnerability comes off as very empty and very hollow and will not mean anything because the damage that he has collected over the decades is what he will have to atone for. Because with his history, he is way past the benefit of the doubt. So his apologies should be between him and God, not the court of public opinion, who rightfully wants to see him fry and burn. So he hasn't even seen rock bottom, but he is definitely on his way there now. So his little performative apology is not going to save him because in life you cannot get absolution without making amends. And to all of Diddy's Helen Keller partners and his enablers, I know that the diddler might have some very damning collateral on you, but please stop while you're ahead. And as for Young Miami, when she is ready, she needs to let the people know that sometimes dating a super rich and a super famous man isn't always what it is cracked up to be just to keep a certain lifestyle. Because I can only imagine the utter nightmare that Young Miami is currently entangled in. Diddy is the kind of narcissistic sicko who believed that he could buy his way out of every problem. But the spiritual world is always in movement. And what is most sad about Diddy is that there are so many artists out there, talented artists, who love making music, who one day dream of making it big in the music industry or getting their family out of poverty, only to realize how rotten and corrupt and evil the entertainment business can truly be. And I hate that there are so many talented souls out there that have had and continue to have their lives maligned, compromised, and manipulated and destroyed because of the vile apex predators that are such a dominant part of an industry who can see the dollar, the thirstiness, and the desperation in you before you even step into the music studio. Ladies, this Cassie story is exactly why you should never ever envy someone else's life, because you never know what is truly going on behind closed doors. But as for Diddy, the truth is money and intimidation may buy you time, decades of time, but it won't buy you the truth. So, ladies and lurkers, was Diddy's apology sincere, or was the terrible actor only embarrassed that he got caught? And as always, I thank you for listening, I thank you for watching, and I thank you for sharing this video to further grow this feminine platform. And please stay tuned for more videos to come, and I will catch up with you ladies and lurkers and ear hustlers in the next one.
People have patterns of behavior. Nobody ever does anything once. So let's say if somebody sent you an angry email that defended you, and then they go, oh, I'm sorry, but that's not who I was. Something came over me. I'm not that person. You will probably accept that, but truth is, it's a pattern. They've done it many times. If they've screwed you in some way, they've screwed 10 other people in their past. You want to see people's patterns of behavior, that kind of compulsive element in them. That'll show you something very deep in their core. You also want to look at them in the moments where their guard is down. We all wear masks. We all try to present ourselves as being noble and great, but the mask comes down in certain elements. So you want to look at how they treat their children, their spouse, their employees. They might be nice to you because they want something out of you, but when their back is turned and they're talking to other people, they're the biggest raging asshole around. That gives you signs of they're trying to disguise this from you. But in the little details of life, they kind of reveal who they are.